Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. So Auntie Lou is in Ghana, and today I'm going to the Cape Coast Castle, and I just wanted to say a quick hello to all my friends and say thank you for coming back, and I hope you enjoyed this video.
This is the Cape Coast Slave Dungeons, and others do call this place Cape Coast Castle. The structure that we see here happens to be the third and the smallest castle built by the Europeans when they came. The coast of Africa, we estimate over 60 fort and castles to be built here, just that Ghana alone had more than 40 of them. It was all because of gold. That made the Portuguese name this region as the Gold Coast. Nigeria, Benin, Niger, some section of Togo had the name Slave Coast because that was where most of the West Africans were captured from. Places like Cameroon, Grain Coast, Ivory Coast, and the others got these names based on the resource that they were getting from the land. And I always use Accra as my reference. So imagine if today you were asked to walk from Accra to this place, the journey and the struggle before you make it this far. But in this time around, some even had to walk beyond the borders of present-day Ghana. A lot of them died. Wild animals attacked them, some got drowned in rivers. Tiredness, hunger, sickness could also kill them. Making it to the castles because of the journey, they created resting points. That is what in Ghana mostly we term the slave market. So from the north down to the south, a lot of them do spread. Salaga, Picoro from the north, Wenchik and Tampo Kumasi as the middle belt them to the coast. They had a place called Asin Mansu. Asin Mansu, they had a river, and that was where the Africans were given their last bath. They gave them food to eat to regain some strength. The beards and the hair used to be shaved so they look younger for the trade. Then the shea butter would be smelled on the skin. The purpose of the butter was to heal their wounds and also make them look attractive because they were bringing them in to the auction. Within this castle, they had a place called the Palava Hall. Nurses, doctors are to examine them to know their strength. They group them into domestic and commercial captives. Domestic ones were those to work in here, commercial ones were those to be exported. Then right after, they exchanged the Africans with commodities such as guns, gunpowders, mirrors, drinkables like rams, sugar, tobacco, and other things that you might have heard were using for the exchange. After the exchange, all captives were brought down to this forecourt for branding and identification. They would set fire, replace in metals that had the walls designs underneath them. So a metal seen red hot from the fire into an oil, from the oil to any part of the body they would stab. So it could be the chest, the shoulder, the back, or the arm, probably making it visible for them to know whether this company or that company had been purchased. Males are separated from females to a weighing station. Whilst in the dungeon, they'll bring you out to work. So this structure that we are seeing, to credit it to the English, but then the labor work happens to be the enslaved Africans. My maid mentioned they built a lot of fort and castles. Out of the numbers, only 3 were castles, and the first ever European structure to be built on our land is the St. George's Castle. Popularly today we call it Almina Castle, built by the Portuguese around 1482. The second is the Christians' Rock, also known as the Osu Castle, by the Danish around 1661. The last is where we all stand today, the Cape Coast Castle by the English around 1664. Out of these 3 castles, this is the only castle built purposely for the transatlantic slave trade. So when you talk of castles, it is the smallest. When you talk of dungeons, this happens to be the biggest dungeon ever to be built in Africa for trade as well. And the trade took place in 3 continents: Europe, Africa, and the Americas, which lasted for 300 years. And other historians will even tell you 400 years. And they do say 400 years all because before the Europeans had gotten to the New World, they were already picking Africans. It's on records the Portuguese had their first set of Africans from Senegal, which was somewhere 1441. These Portuguese sailors were led by Gonzalez, and historically, it was like the 12 Africans picked from these places were to be Christianized, to become missionaries, so they could return them, help them spread their gospel, and also serve as their interpreters, because already the Arabs had spread at the north and the east of Africa. But as I speak with you, we don't know what actually happened to these 12 Africans. And from that time, any moment the Portuguese were living ashores, they were living with Africans. 30 years after, they landed on our shores, realized whatever they were searching along the coast of Guinea was right here. That made them stay, built the Elmina Castle, named this place the Gold Coast. They monopolized the trade for some time until the 1500s when they got into the New World. Plantations like sugarcane, tobacco, cotton, coffee, rice, and others were established in large scale. And earlier they subjected the natives from those lands to be working on the plantations, but then the hardship was killing them. They got them introduced to diseases like measles, pox, influenza, tuberculosis, and others. They were owners of the land, so easily they could escape from the plantations. So Catholic missionary with the name Bartholomew de las Casas suggested the use of Africans, justifying Africans as being stronger, and that the African system was actually strong enough to withstand both tropical diseases as well as the European diseases. Looking at the climatic condition in Africa and the work the Africans were doing on their lands, mainly agriculture and the craftworks, it was similar to what they expect them doing out there. So moving the Africans out there should be of the best advantage to the Europeans. In here, they had different ways getting the Africans. Some were raided, kidnapped along the coast by the early Europeans themselves. Some were brought in as a result of tribal wars, which mostly were fueled by the European weapons. Others as well got convinced, or some would say deceived, that they were to be given better life, joining them to the New World. So let me say they were trafficked. But when you get out there, whatever they have promised you is not what you are to receive out there. The trade doesn't end in Africa, because after exchanging them with the guns, with the mirrors, with the sugar in the New World, plantation owners would exchange these same Africans with tobacco, cotton, coffee, sugarcane, rice. The raw materials are sent to Europe, so they transform them into finished goods. All finished goods are moved into Africa from the cycle to start all over. That gave us the triangular trade, the transatlantic slave trade. So basically, that is the system. If you have any question, comment, or contribution, let me know. Fight and take over the land. So the land we see here, the English built the castle, but before different Europeans had already used this land. The Portuguese were the first settlers. After the establishment of the Elmina Castle, a section of their traders came to this land. They built a timber lodge, traded here for almost 100 years until the Dutch fought them at Elmina. So they left Elmina, they abandoned this place. When they left, the Swedish took over. The Swedish built a fort here, stayed in for about 5 years. The Danish fought the Swedish, stayed in for about 2 years. The Dutch also fought the Danish, stayed for 3 years. The English fought the Dutch. When the English took over, they expanded the Swedish fort into the castle we see here, and they stayed in for 296 years. The English knew enemies would come fight them, so they were fully prepared to protect their gates. That is why the whole castle is surrounded with cannons and their bows. So once they see any enemy coming from the sea and the land, they put in gunpowder, blaze water the mouth, light the match, a series of balls will enter the enemy ship, water goes in there, and sinks into the sea. That helped the English surviving for the 296 years. So this section of the castle, as well as these areas, they had graves. And Europeans would bury their people here, and some even in the town. But the Africans that died in here, they dumped their bodies into the sea. This castle was excavated somewhere in 1986. And after the excavation, they left only 4 graves there. All because they were the only ones that had inscriptions to identify the person buried underneath. Out of the 4 graves, you could see there's one separated from the 3 here. That is Philip Kwaku, the only black man buried in the castle. And I would ask how come all blacks were dumped in the sea and he was buried here. The genesis of his story was that the father was one of the middlemen that were bringing captives in. So the role of the man got his son a scholarship. He was taken to England at the age of 11. In England, they baptized him into the Anglican faith, giving the name Philip. And his local name, Kwiku, was also anglicized to Kwaku. That made him Philip Kwaku. Age 24, he became the first black man to be ordained as an Anglican priest, telling us he was trained in England for 14 good years. The following year, they brought him back to serve in the castle. So Just up there with the windows open was their church. The priest, as a black person, beneath him, Africans were staying. He served the castle for 50 good years. So the role he played in here got him the befitting burial over there. You know, today some would try to justify that at least he did something good. All because, you know, at the point, treatment for him in the castle was very poor. They were not paying him. So in the town, he would commerce to feed himself. Through that, he taught the natives how to read and write English language. But I always say, whether you were a perpetrator or an observer of slavery, you still made an impact in the trade. Because probably, maybe, one word from you might have stopped the business. Once you observed it going on, because it was feeding you, also aided their trade. He died at the age of 75, 1816. They buried him in Zaire. The remaining three are all Europeans. The first one out here says by name C.B. Whitehead, and we don't know what actually killed Whitehead. As of today, some do say he was shot by a Dutch, others are saying malaria killed him. He died at the age of 38, 1812. The middle is a lady, Letitia Elizabeth London. London came to the castle to visit the husband. Barely 2 months, they found her dead in the husband's room. Some do say she poisoned herself, but she got to know the husband, having stayed here for almost 8 years, was an African mistress. Others are saying the African mistress, mother came to the castle, posed as a maid, had her poisoned, and some are saying malaria killed her. She was 36 when she died 1838. And the last one is the husband. The husband is very popular in the Ghanaian history. The name George McLean. Today I'm sure you might hear his name almost 3 or 4 times. There's a tunnel that was blocked by him. He actually introduced us to the Western coast that we actually use today. So the first Western court established on our land where common law was practiced is the Roman Hall, named after him as the McLean Hall. Through that, he designed a lot of treaties. The most popular one in Ghana we call the Bond of 1845. Age 46, malaria confirmed killed McLean 1847. So 46, 36, 38, and 71. Please, let's see. So once they were brought out of the dungeons to work, some would want to fight officers, others would want to escape from this place. Doing that, they saw them to rebellions, and for that, the rebellious ones were to be killed, to deter others from escaping or fighting them. In here, they wouldn't shoot them dead. Rather, in the presence of other captives, they got them beaten out there before they moved them into the cell. With 3 doors blocking them, there will be no food, no water, no air, and no light. So you dehydrate, you suffocate, and then you die. But then the sad aspect is, let's say about 5 or 10 of them were sent in. The soldier assigned at the gate was to ensure all those in there were dead before he was in. So if he walks in, realize out of the 10, let's say 7 were dead, he will take them out until the last 3 joined. Once they were all dead, they lay the bodies on the floor for the others to see it. So that next time, if you want to repeat the same thing, remembering what you saw on the floor should deter you from escaping or fighting. They jump the bodies into the sea. So I always say it was more of a psychological way to control the other captives in the night. We are moving in to have a feel of the place. Please, the frames of the door is shut, so watch your head. This is the only original door we have left in the castle. So all doors and windows have been restored. The last door we have here. Please watch your head, you join me. Watch your head.
Oh, you can't see nothing.
Yes.
Wait.
So don't worry, I will probably turn on my flash.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
So that is the condom cell.
Oh no.
So
You can't
luckily for us, there's no door here. There's no door in the middle. The first door itself open, I'm sure we still feel the heat. So imagine having 1 or 2 doors blocking us, and like I said, until the last person was dead, no one gets to leave this place. That is why today, some even prefer calling this place the room or the cell of no return, because you are entering as a living being, but only dead bodies are to be taken out. I wouldn't want anyone dying here, so please, you watch your head, then I follow you. You find you. You are finished. Please come have a look at this. I made mentioned some captives were brought in as a result of tribal wars. You know, I always do say, from the Eurocentric perspective, always they will tell you Africans were selling their brothers and sisters. They would never tell you how the Africans actually got themselves involved in the system. Before the Europeans came in here, Africans already knew slavery, but then what we considered to be slavery was different from what they introduced to us. In the olden days, if I had seen his land and I want to take over, we fight. Defeating him means he probably gets to join me. They defeating me, I probably joined him. And it was very difficult for a stranger to even know whether I was the servant or he was the master. Because we could all live under the same roof. Some of them even could pay off their debts to gain their freedom. Others, at a point, would probably change status of being servant to become royals. And a typical example, in Ghana, we could use the Asantes, the Akwamu, the Dentura, and others as reference. Knowing that made it easier for the Europeans, because this group that we see here happens to be divisions that came together. So though you might see it's very big, but then within them there are differences. So with that, we also fuse ourselves into the system. We supply them with weapons. They were fighting with bows and arrows, which was not powerful. So with that, now we become the engineers of their wars. They supply the Africans with weapons, they fight themselves. If this tribe defeat your tribe, they will supply them to me. If your tribe defeat a tribe, supply them to a different group, the same way a tribe defeating each other. So at the point, the Europeans were no longer going out to hunt Africans again, because they knew once you supply them with the weapons, they will fight themselves. And if you don't fight, your people will always end up being captured. And I always say there is no tribe in here that can exempt themselves from the trade. He brought one captive, you brought one captive, you brought 10, she brought 100. In the end, we all brought captives. So all of them brought them, just that the magnitude or probably the numbers depends on your war strength that will help you to get. So the chiefs in Ghana, 1992, during our meeting, Panafest brought this to render an apology for Africans' involvement in the trade, and also to remind us so we don't forget the past for the same atrocity to repeat itself again. It reads, in everlasting memory of the anguish of our ancestors, may those who died rest in peace, may those who return find their roots, and may humanity never again perpetrate such injustice against humanity. We, the living, vow to uphold it. So, living being, if you wouldn't want yourself enslaved, never should you get yourself involved in any slave activity. The brothers. The other one is a self-explanatory plaque. Yobamas were here 2009, July 11th. So it was actually to appreciate them visiting us. Yeah, so you can get a picture of it if you want to. We move straight into the middle. Four steps. The last one drops a little bit, so you watch your steps coming in. The dungeons had no light, so the holes that you are seeing there is to provide them with light and also serve as their source of ventilation. The male dungeon is in 5 chambers. The first, second, third, fourth down to the fifth one. And by estimates that we have in here, about 100 to 200 of them were to stay in here. So you multiply that by 5. We're expecting about 500 to 1,000 humans filling the 5 spaces. They were raided, kidnapped, hunted, drew off them. So they were not brought on the same day. Some were brought in probably a day, a week, a month or 2 until ships were ready to get them from this place. Awaiting their ships, they expect them to defecate, urinate, sleep, eat in the same dungeon, of which a lot of them got sick. Because just the four of us in here, communicable disease easily would spread amongst us. Aside that, the unhygienic condition was to add up to the illness: cholera, malaria, fever, diarrhea, and other diseases. If you were to die in the dungeon, there will be no befitting burial for you. Bodies will be loaded in sacks, they add cannonballs given to it, dump all the bodies into the ocean. So the sea happens to be mass burial for a lot of the Africans that died in it. On the floor, we see trenches or drainage systems here. They serve as passage for waste in here to move into the ocean. We ask ourselves how often it would rain, and looking at the numbers they were keeping in here, how many of them would even get closer to the trench to ease themselves. So right at where they were standing, they would defecate, urinate, and sleep, of which a lot of them were sick. So unfortunately, if you die in here, they wouldn't give you a lifting burial. And the waste over the years, the domestic captives would also come to clean. Due to movement, they step on it. So whatever they could get from this place, they do. So the rest, they cover them with sand. It created layers in the dungeon. 1974, we had some group of archaeologists from the University of Ghana. They came in, got this place excavated, discovered the bricks as the original floor of the dungeon. So they took samples of what they got from this thing to their lab, got them tested. The results they had proved that the little portion over there, as well as everything we walk on, from the second down to the fifth chamber, is the toilets, the vomit, the sweat, the blood, the food particles, things that we humans are to excrete and get from our system. Sand, food, and blood is what we see here. We walk on in the other chambers, and they left them unexcavated to serve as a proof. Should in case you don't believe, you could also get samples to test as to whether they contain DNAs or not. Question, comment, if you have any, Julian. Let me show you something this way. Alright, so I made mention the first chamber was excavated, leaving the other four. On the floors, we can see some bricks. And what it is telling us is that if we excavate this place and the other chambers, there should be bricks all over. So whatever that you stand on happens to be the toilets, the vomits, the sweat, and other things I made mention over the years powder, creating the floors that we stand on. You remember out there I made mention they had a tunnel that connects the dungeon to the door and the gate of no return. So when ships were ready, the soldiers as well as some of the domestic captives would bring in chains, shackles, and thick ropes. To group them would force them through a tunnel that connects this place to the door or the gate of no return. It's unfortunate we wouldn't go to the tunnel today, because in the year 1834, Captain George McLean, who was the administrator or the president of the merchant, was asked to block the tunnel, symbolizing the English ending slavery here. The tunnel was blocked, but then illegally, they still smuggled the Africans until 1860. And I'm saying 1860 all because historically, the last ship left Africa, that was from Benin. It landed in Alabama 1860. And the name of the ship was the Clotilda ship, telling us though laws had been passed and the trade from 1807 to 1833, but then they still continued with the system till 1860. Areas where they were keeping the Africans itself, the northern part, ended somewhere 1865. That was during Abraham Lincoln's time, the Civil War period. The Caribbean land was 1886. That was in Cuba. And the final place the whole trade ended was Brazil, which was 1888. So historically, I can say the Portuguese and the trade right here, the same Portuguese and the trade in Brazil. But then let us never forget in our history that the Europeans never gave the Africans their freedom. The Africans rather fought for their rights. Because I always see, had it not been the Haiti Revolution in 1790s there, today we wouldn't be here talking about this history, because probably they will still be doing whatever they were doing as well. Blocking the tunnel that they had here should tell us this was not part of the dungeon system, because having a tunnel there means this will block them. The land we stand on was a sacred place for the natives. They worship a deity that they call Nana Tabi in the form of a rock. Giving the land out, they were asked to leave the place, but then they actually took samples of the deity, 2 of them, to the town so they would worship. The castle we see here was originally given to Ghanaians in 1960. That was when Ghana became a republican country, and then 1973 they brought them back. So today, those that actually believe in this system, they do come into worship. That is why you see things they use for their prayers. The stools are here for them to sit when they come in for consultation or prayers. We look over there, we see wreaths and flowers. They were brought in here by visitors like yourself. I made mention you die in here, the body moves into the sea. We have the belief that the souls are still here. So when you bring them, we don't litter around. Places like this, we keep them to honor, respect, remember the dead. So when you see them anywhere in the dungeon or in the castle, they serve the same purpose. Question, comment, if you have any, you tell me. Why do you think that? I would say, the materials used in. Please, have a look at this one.
Did you say up here is a church? Up there?
So from this end,
Yeah.
to this place. Escaping, but then they would smell, witness everything. And those days, I would say the church actually played a vital role in the trade. And once you talk about the church and its involvement in the trade, some would say you're blaspheming. I always say myself, I'm a Christian, I'm using myself. But then the truth of the matter is Christianity was never introduced to Africans for their salvation. It was one of the tools that they used to enslave them. And let us never forget that the church is an institution held by humans. So those that were leading the churches, those days coming in here were never meant anything good for the Africans. Rather, they knew they could use these things actually to get the Africans. And just as they were staying up here pretending to be preaching, some of them were also owning plantations in the Americas. So they profit from the business in Africa and as well in the Americas as well. And surprisingly, this is not the only place they have built a church above a dungeon. Almost all the castles had the same system. Up here they had the Anglican Church. At the forecourt of the castle they had the Wesley Methodist. Elmina Castle above their slave market they had the Catholic Church. The same Elmina Castle above the female dungeons they had the Dutch Reformed Church. Osu, that is the Christiansborg, they had the Presbyterian Church as well. So they worship up here, and beneath them they were keeping Africans. And at a point they made this place a school for the mixed race, the kids that they had with the blacks. So the kids were moving in and out of the school, whilst other Africans were screaming right beneath them. Today it serves as a library for the community. Just as we can all see up here, children's library. So if you have any question, comments, you would let me know. Before they allow you to see the governor, someone had to check you and make sure you had nothing harmful on you. Office for the governor. He entertained his guests in here, they drink, do other stuff, and he does his documentation over there as well. The floors that we are standing on is not original. We restored these floors But when you step foot here, everything we walk on till we enter the governor's room is still original. So please, keep going. We're almost done with the stairs.
Almost.
That is it.
Wow. Wow. He was living the good life, isn't it? Wow. All this space for one person. Oh my goodness.
Alright, so this happens to be the governor's living room. We've all seen the dungeons and we saw the conditions down there. So just compare what you're seeing here to what we saw in the dungeons. The type of vent he had here to what the Africans had down there. The breeze coming in, the view of the sea, the lighting system, the space to which one person stayed alone should tell us he was enjoying life happily. And aside having the space as the living room, he had his bedroom over there. So let's see the bedroom of the cat. Good.
Wow.
So, the bedroom of the governor is having 9 windows. The living room is with 5. His corridor having 2. So one person staying up here had 16 windows surrounding him. And definitely he'll get a 360 look all over the castle. The land view where the soldiers stayed and the sea view, the courtyard of the castle. So everything that happens around him, staying up here, he'll definitely witness it. Question, comment, if you have any, please let me know. Please. The European soldiers stayed down there. They used the middle part as their canteen. George McLean, the man buried down there, introduced us to the Western Court. So the room stretching from this place, it extends over there, was their first court room. Sorry. They converted this place into a prison for the Africans. So it was a prison until 1992. That was when they moved the prison from this place to an area called Ankafu.
Until 92.
92. So 1992. About 30%.
92.
Yes. So that was when the prison was moved. So even after independence, it was still a prison. Yes. These floors are still original. These are marble stones, the original floors. Let's see the courtroom. The ceilings, the doors and windows in here, everything has been restored. Just that we try to maintain the old design that they had in here. So, criminal issues, chieftaincy issues, and other civil issues were brought in here. And when you were found guilty, they moved you straight into the prison. Please, we go down this way. This happens to be the exit of the tunnel. So from the dungeons, they walk through the underground tunnel with exit here. So just as they blocked the entrance in 1834, the same date the exit was also blocked. The males would walk out this way, would join the females, and all of them would exit that way. All the rooms that they had down here were storage rooms where they kept goods that they brought for the exchange. The building materials and their foodstuffs were kept in their rooms down here.
Wow.
We proceed a little bit this way. You want yourselves coming down. The ladies can have a look in there. This is for the ladies. Here, it is an entrance to the cell. A punishment for the females. You know, the European merchants, soldiers, governors, and others were not coming with their wives. So whenever they want to satisfy themselves sexually, they move into the female dungeon, pick any lady of their choice to abuse and rape her. For you to be brave enough to fight back, to uphold the little dignity you had in here, they will punish you. And your punishment was for you staying in this room for some days or weeks just to get a change of mind. So that next time they come back, you would avail yourself for the rape. But then not all of them wanted to stay in here because the dungeon itself was punishment enough for them. Having stayed there for a month without anything cleaning yourself, you imagine the infections and the stench. So for that, once they were picked, they moved them up there, washed them, and take them to bed. After being raped, they were brought back to the dungeons. Because of the delay of the ships, some were seen pregnant here. They took them from the dungeons, take care of them, so they give birth. After delivery, the mother is allowed to take care of the baby for some months until they see the mothers and the baby's fate. That is where the separation comes in. Mother is brought back to the dungeons for the nurse to take care from this place. The babies were for them. So these babies, they had nannies to take care of them. So that when the babies grow, they will bring them to the church. So remember I said they brought some x-rays up there. It was those kids. During and as well after the trade, some left this place, others stayed behind. That is why here in Ghana, if you check our coastal zones, we have a lot of European names. So mostly you'll be hearing names like Morgan, Van der Hoy, Van Dyke, Wales, Wolves, Smith, William, McCarthy, De Graft, Johnson, and others. A lot of them in Ghana happens to be descendant of the mixed race. Others also adapt and some corrupt African names into European. So not all of them are direct descendants.
There's a mix, the light skin.
The light skin, some of them are there. So please, any question, comment, you let me know. If not, we have a look at the female units. Okay. So the females have two separate chambers. Mm-hmm. We have a look at this. Alright, so the enslaved females, like I said, had two separate chambers. One in here, the other also directly opposite us. About 150 of them stayed here, the same number stayed over there. The condition in here was similar to what the males had. They would defecate, urinate, sleep, eat in here. But then the worst aspect, you all know, every month females do menstruate. So imagine that female staying in for more than months. Infections, pain, stench, trauma, disease, and others. You die in here, they dump your body into the sea. The main reason for them adding females to the trade was for them to reproduce, so they could multiply the numbers of the enslaved Africans once they had gotten to the plantations in the New World. These were their source of vent. They had an extra one over there, just that they had bars blocking them from escaping the dungeons. Question, comments, if you have any, please. Let's see the door of no return. Oh. Are you going out? Are you going out? Are you going out? No, I'm not with them. Are you going to go? It was a very short and narrow door designed for one person to fit at a time. And you wouldn't walk out standing, rather you bend or bow to fit through the door they had in. We now have this bigger door all because the English once made this town the capital city of Gold Coast, and the castle became their administrative quarters. So they had to expand the door for goods to be moving in out of this place. Africans that exited this door never returned there. You walk out of this point, you lose your right as a human being, you lose your connection with the people, you also get to lose your identity or your personality as an African. I'm saying this all because if he tells me he's let's say Tete or Te, I know he's from Madangwe. If she tells me she's Na Ayele, I know she's from Accra. If you tell me you are Isinam, I know you're from Volta. I tell you I'm a Bankwa, it means I'm an Akan. And they don't care where they picked all of us from. We get to the plantation, all of us are to be Christian, to be named like James, Stephen, Mary, Esther. Our master happens to be Swansea, so automatically all of us tend to be Swanseas because we come as prophets. We speak different dialects, and because of the language barrier, we can't communicate. So the best option was for us adapting to our master's language. So years to come, the Asantis, the Ga, the Ewe, Yoruba, Nyagangwe, Konkomba, Nagati, all are to speak the same language, bear the same name. So their descendants are going to lose their identity. You walk out of this place, you lose your right because you could be killed at any point, anytime and as and when they wanted to do so. You know, this trade or human trafficking brought a lot of policies, and one of them was the insurance aspect. And things they were insuring were the Africans because they saw the Africans as their properties. At a point, some of the captains of the ships, as well as the business owners, took advantage of that and they were killing them. Because they knew whether he survived or died, they were still going to make their profits. So intentionally they killed them, went out there to seek compensation. I'm sure some of us here might have heard of the Bonner Lynch system, the backbreaking and other things out there. A lot of the Africans had never seen the ocean before. Majority of them came from the inner lands, so getting to see the ocean for the first time got them scared, thinking they were to be killed. So when placed on canoes to take them into bigger ships, they themselves were jumping into the sea to commit suicide. I was willing to jump, but he was not. We were in chains together, so I jumped, I pull him, he definitely pulled someone, then we all moved, we died together. We make it to the bigger ship because of the numbers. They lay them head tail before transporting them. Historically, the largest number made it to the south. Brazil had the highest concentration. Some were taken to Argentina, Colombia, Costa Rica, and others. The Caribbean lands, Haiti, Jamaica, Cuba, Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, Barbados, Antigua, Dominican Republic, and others. Some went up north, mostly to the eastern section of US of A, Florida, North, South Carolina, Mississippi, Virginia, New York, and others, and some were taken straight to Europe. Europe to England had the highest number. France, Netherlands, Denmark, Portugal, Spain. Today we see black spread all over the world. As I speak with you, we keep getting different numbers, but in the world now, historically accept about 12.5 million Africans are making it to the new world. Out of these numbers, some do say about 2 million of them died. Other literatures are saying about 3 times more of that number also died. Estimating those that died on their way into the castles, those that died in the dungeons, and those that died on their way to the new world. Today, we are lucky to use the same law with us. We are sure to return back. So please, we journey out, we return back. But unluckily for us, we use the same path, we walked on their path, but then we return back. So the best we can do is to welcome you into the castle. That is why we have Akwaaba here. Literally, it's an Akan word joined together. This section means you went somewhere, this section means you are back. So Akwa and Aba together giving us Akwaaba. Just as when we go somewhere, you come back home, we get to welcome you. We are ending the experience here. And I always do say the best person that should be narrating the history should be the walls of these castles, because over the years, these dungeons experience the horrors and other things I made mention. In here, we don't actually frame stories to create any psychological trauma in anyone's mind. Neither are we inciting anyone going out there to fight others who have been in the past, or to cause segregation among races, tribes, and any religious group. We want each and everyone that makes food to this place to know the inhuman acts, the crimes, and the atrocities that happened some years back. So the living are left in the past. Today we keep saying slavery ended in 1860, but deep in all of us we know the system still stays. That we modernized and giving different things. Africa here we talk of tribalism, colorism, child labor, economic and slavery, gender imbalance, and the rest. In the world, we know of racism, imperialism, caste systems, and neoliberalism, and others. A living being, if you wouldn't want yourself enslaved, never should you get yourself involved in any slave activity. You do unto others as you expect them to do to you. We leave this purposes to become agents of change, regardless of our race, our tribes, our gender, our religious beliefs, all humans. But the most importantly, we should never forget about the past. Because I always say the past is there to guide us. Forgetting the past means we are likely to repeat the same mistake over and over again. Yesterday was Africa, today might be Asia, tomorrow you never know where it will happen. Might be at the same place or anywhere else. So just as I wouldn't want that happening to myself and my family, the same way we all deserve the same. So I'm sure we've all have an experience in here. Hope to see you next time if you want to visit. The name once again, Thomas Abba. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.